Okay, I think we are live. I always like to give it a few seconds just in case it begins midway through me talking, and I don't want to do that. It's happened to me before. Okay, yes, I believe we're live. Screw it, we'll start. So hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Nobody Puts Podcast in a Corner. This episode is simply titled, and I say simply in the best of ways, Alan Rickman, where we will be discussing the life and career of one of the greatest British actors of all time. So before we get started, I will do my usual spiel of, if you are watching live with us this evening, we hope you enjoy today's episode. You can follow us on many of the social media channels that I have now attacked, which is very alien to me, but I've done it nonetheless. On Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Just please follow, please show your love, please support, and go from there. Obviously, I am your host. I forgot what I was about to say then. I am your host. I don't know who I am, but I'm your host. I am Ross. And joining me today is Corey. Hello, Corey.
Hello.
Thank you for joining today. Obviously today we're going to be talking about the wonderful Alan Rickman. Before that, though, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that, as you can see on that little bar down there, I now am offering the chance for people to sponsor an episode. I'm very proud to say that our first episode of season 2 has currently had over 325 watches, which I am really, really ecstatic about. I don't think anyone's really listening to the actual physical podcast anymore, but you know what? It's fine. It's still there on Spotify. But yes, 325 views thus far. I'm very happy about that. And as a result, feel like this could be a good place to be supporting local businesses who want to do a little bit of promotion in these very challenging times. So if you're interested, if you are a local business and you want to do a little bit of advertising, please drop me a message and you can sponsor an episode. I can even stick your logo there. See what I just did there? That could be where your logo could go for the entire episode. But yes. Anyway, so with all that in mind, please, as I say, please follow us on everything physically possible, and please just show your love. So before we get started, Corey, I thought that I would share an interesting story that occurred earlier on. I commented on an article on Facebook to do with Christopher Nolan. And the fact that the article was something along the lines of he may not be working with Warner Brothers much anymore. Obviously, Warner Brothers have done a lot of his films previously, and I simply commented, and this just goes to show how people must be so bored at home at the minute, willing to jump on things at the drop of a hat. I commented saying that that ultimately, since inception, I feel like Christopher Nolan's films haven't been quite up to scratch. However, the problem is that I used the word they've gone downhill. And I don't mean downhill in the sense of they're bad. You know, I don't think Dunkirk was bad. I don't think Tenet was bad. I did think Interstellar was quite bad. But, you know, I've got my reasons for that. My God, the amount of abuse I got. People saying, so hang on, you think Tenet is good, but you don't think Interstellar is good. And I'm like, yes, what of it? And they said, oh, how does that make sense? You know, you're talking about two nonsensical films. And I said, well, no. I said, a film can be nonsensical and still enjoyable. And that wasn't good enough, apparently. And apparently that meant that I got lauded with a load of abuse. How dare I have an opinion, basically. And I just thought, you know what? One of the beautiful things about watching films and discussing films, and one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is how subjective it all is, and how it's just nice to share opinions. And even if I say I like one film and you don't like it, that's fine. But don't be a bastard about it. There's no need for that. Anyway, that's just my little film rant of the week. The other thing is, obviously, to those of you watching us live, please feel free to comment and ask any questions throughout. We will obviously be talking about the many films of Alan Rickman today. Your comments will be appreciated throughout. And of course, we will highlight certain comments throughout the whole thing. If you have any questions to do with Alan Rickman or the films, throughout this podcast, then please do ask, and we will endeavour to answer as many as possible. But yes, as Ithil has just commented, if everyone liked the same thing, the world would be very boring. I completely agree. However, it doesn't mean to say that people have to be arseholes about it, but that's just my opinion. So yes. Accompanying me tonight on this podcast is a very nice bottle of white wine, which is not so full anymore, but it's fine. And yes, so shall we talk Alan Rickman, Corey?
Yes, we shall.
We shall. Okay, so Corey, obviously you asked to be involved in the episode, yes, which I'm very grateful for. Talk to me about, generally, maybe not so specific about his films just yet, but generally, what is it about Alan Rickman that you love?
I think it's just because of his voice. The thing about Alan Rickman that I love to bits about him is his voice. He's so iconic. If you hear the voice, you go, you know who that is. You know that's Alan Rickman. And most of his films, you hear the voice, you know it's him. And he always acts in each film of his, he acts in a different way. If it's a voiceover, even if it's in a live action, he always does it differently to his other films that he's done previously. That's what I love.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you there. There are so many actors. I always use them as an example, and it's not it's not me knocking this particular actor, but Tom Hanks, I feel like is Tom Hanks in every film he's in. He's a great actor. The only film I've always said is a bit different to that, in my personal opinion, is Forrest Gump. When I think of a film with Tom Hanks, even Toy Story, when it's just his voice, I think of Tom Hanks, not necessarily the character. Whereas when it's Alan Rickman, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like you don't necessarily think of the actor initially, you think of the character, because he embodies every character so uniquely. And that's one of the wonderful things about him. I would have to echo exactly what you said there. He has got the most wonderful of voices to listen to. I think ultimately, addressing the elephant in the room, I guess, is that one of the most tragic things about him is that he's not with us anymore. And, that we will never get to see any more films with him in. And that is truly, I think, from his craft, the most tragic element of his story. However, it doesn't mean to say that he didn't bless us with a many vast amount of wonderful films first, which obviously we are going to discuss. So I'm going to start, because this is the first podcast. I mean, this is the first podcast I've done where we've focused specifically on an actor. We've done a franchise. We've done obviously the Harry Potter franchise, and we've done the Star Wars franchise as an episode. But what we have not done as of yet is focus on a specific actor. So I think it's only right that I give a little bit of information that I'm ripping directly off Wikipedia to you all about Alan Rickman. So he was born Alan Sidney Patrick Rickman in 1946. He studied at Chelsea College of Art and Design, and then of course RADA. He is not just an actor, he is a director as well. He has directed 2 films, one of which I have seen only 15 minutes ago, and we will discuss that soon. He mainly started off in theatre, specifically playing Tybalt in BBC's Shakespeare collection in Romeo and Juliet. And he did a lot of theatre in his early part of his career, and some small TV roles. However, his first, and I don't think a lot of people know this about Alan Rickman, his first major role, his first film role, his first ever role in a film was Die Hard. And I think I talked to a lot of people, oh yeah, Alan Rickman in Die Hard, he was fantastic, but not many people know that was his first ever film. So yes, Hans Gruber in Die Hard was and what a way to kick off your film career with such an iconic character. So Die Hard, I believe you watched this quite recently, didn't you, Corey?
Yeah, I only watched it yesterday. I know a lot of people will probably be quite at me because I've never actually watched it, but I'm not a massive fan of. I like Bruce Willis as an actor. I do. He's great, but I'm not a massive fan of Die Hard. But I sat there and went,
no, but he set a standard. He set a standard.
Yeah.
He introduced us to, he gave us a taste of what this is Alan Rickman, and this is what we should expect, and didn't we just, finish it wanting so much more? So yeah, Alan Rickman, we'll touch on some of his television and theatre bits a bit later on, but we will go straight into Die Hard. So yes, first film role in Die Hard, playing Hans Gruber opposite Bruce Willis. He has been voted the 46th best villain in all of history in that role, which I think is quite interesting. So one interesting bit of trivia here that I think I got off. Let me just check. Yes, I got it off the Wikipedia page. That he almost didn't take the role. He almost didn't take it because he didn't think Die Hard was the kind of film he wanted to make. But he went for it nonetheless, and aren't we glad he did? And I know this is something that you were going to mention as well, Corey, but the bit of trivia for the film is the shot, isn't it, when he's at the end, when obviously, spoilers, as I have just clocked that here Ithil still not watched it, so I apologize, but it came out in 1988. I think we can talk about it openly. When his character falls from Nakatomi Plaza, there we go. Ithil's just said she doesn't care about the spoilers. Well, that's good. I'm glad you don't care about the spoilers because we're about to ruin it anyway. So when he falls, he was told that he was only going to drop, I think, a foot or two, wasn't it? It was like it was going to be like, you're right, it's all right, don't worry, you're just going to fall and you go straight on. But what they didn't tell him was that actually the drop was more like, I don't know, 30 feet or something like that, 15 to 30 feet. And so that when he falls and there's that initial like, oh no, I'm falling, and then you see the pure fear kick in, it's because it was a longer drop than he expected to have. And so it was one of those, it was a bit like the Jurassic Park thing where the kids didn't know that the T-Rex was going to burst through the roof of the Jeep. And that fear on their faces was genuine. And it's the same with Alien as well. The cast didn't know that the creature was going to burst out of John Hurt's chest. So they, a good technique to get a legitimate reaction. So it was something like that. Oh, was it? Oh, hang on. Meeple has just said the other side to that part, I think, is that they actually dropped him earlier than planned. Ah, yes, that would also make sense. No, I believe I have read that before, Meeple, so I think you are right. Thank you. Either way, the drop didn't go the way, the way it had planned, or he expected, sorry, and that's why we got the great reaction. So, yes, Die Hard, there we go. Life with James, this is all very insightful, enjoying this a lot. You're welcome, James. Hope you continue finding it insightful. Now, let's move on. We're going to talk next about, he's done a lot of films, but we can only talk about so many. So we're going to really tackle his most iconic roles. I know some people might give me crap for that. And if we obviously don't discuss a particular role that you wish we had, please mention it before this podcast finishes. We will get to a point where we finish talking about his films, and if we haven't mentioned one that you have not heard, then please call us out for it, and we will do our best to discuss it if we've seen it. So his next film is actually my favorite role of his. I love him in a lot of his films. In fact, all of his films. He's never done a film that I've actually watched and gone, I don't like him in this. However, he has done one that I absolutely adore. And if I was ever going to play a villain in a film, I'd want to play it like how he played it. And that is of the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, the Prince of Thieves. And I actually rewatched this recently. I rewatched about 2-3 weeks ago, and I watched a different version of it to the one that I had seen years ago. So when they released it on Blu-ray, they actually released it as a director's cut, and they restored about 15 minutes worth of Alan Rickman that had been previously cut out, because Kevin Costner, being the diva that he is, when the film came out in '91, when it was in its pre-production stage, Kevin Costner was conscious that Alan Rickman was stealing the show, and so he said, "This isn't good. You need to cut more of Alan Rickman out, because I'm Kevin Costner and I'm Robin Hood, and the film is about me. So you need to give me more screen time." So they cut a lot of Alan Rickman's stuff out, and it was a travesty ultimately. And in 2011 or 2013, I think, they went, "Do you know what? This isn't good enough. We need to show the world some more of the wonderful role he gave." And they released the Blu-ray version. So to anyone listening, watching, if you want to see a version of this film that you potentially have never seen, try and get the director's cut on DVD or Blu-ray, and you will watch and you will see many scenes that were not in the original. And I think 90% of them are all Alan Rickman, and it really does show off more fun and more range I think he had with the role. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. Corey, have you seen this film? Do you like this film? Talk to me about this film.
Well, I agree with you straight away. The Sheriff of Nottingham is my favourite villain that he plays. It's just so good. He's menacing. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves has got to be one of the best 90s films out there.
I agree with you there.
It's just a beautiful film. Kevin Costner, great in it. Good Robin Hood, but just the highlight of the whole film is just the evilness and the menacingness of Alan Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham. And the fact it's that fight scene at the end. The fight scene at the end, he looks at the scar and goes, It was just that scene. It makes me I love it.
It's very early 90s, very cheesy, very hammy, but it works, and that's one of the brilliant things about it. So yes, they cut Alan scenes, those bastards indeed. What else? So I'm just looking at some of the comments. Emma, hey Emma, I have that version, love it. Literally my favorite Sunday film. Great comment there. So yeah, it's one of those things where I actually read that one of the conditions that he had taking on this role. Again, it was a bit like Die Hard. He wasn't really 100% on taking it on, but he kind of said, "Look, I'll do it, but I want to really be able to go to town with it." And the director said, "Yeah, sure. Ultimately, it's your role. You do whatever you want with it." And he did. So everything you see in you see a lot of films and you see a lot of actors and you kind of sit there and go, "Oh, that's wonderful. What they've done is really good." And a lot of it is the actor and a lot of it's the direction of obviously the director. Then you see some roles where you watch a very good actor give not a very good performance and you kind of go, "Really? I thought I was expecting more." And it's because the director hasn't allowed them to. And then you get an example like this where the director says to Alan Rickman, "You know what? Over to you. Do whatever you want." And, just an astounding villain role. It was fun. It was one of those cheesy 90s films where, it had a serious element to it. It wasn't really what I would consider the best of Robin Hood films, but it kind of is because of him.
It's up there.
It's up there. It definitely is. And I'm just clocking in on Flying Fish's comment. The first Robin Hood story I saw was a Disney, and now I'm disappointed by the lack of Fox in other versions. Well, I don't know what to say to that. You know Fox is in the Alan Rickman version, but there is Alan Rickman in the Alan Rickman version. So, hopefully...
I think it'll probably maybe third on the list for Prince of Thieves for Robin Hood films. I think second would be the recent Robin Hood film, because that film is incredible. Yeah, I really underestimated that film. And the first one, just because of that, I've never seen fully Robin Hood Men in Tights. Never seen it. God,
it's so funny.
It's just the line where he says about, "I shouldn't lose. Let me check the scripts." That line makes me laugh every time.
That's a classic Mel Brooks film. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Men in Tights is fantastic. Funny enough, my favorite version is the Taron Egerton one.
Oh yeah,
Many people would disagree with me on that. However, Flying Fish enjoys it. I love it because it was different.
yeah,
It was cheesy, it was cheesy. It wasn't the greatest made film in the world, and it didn't do necessarily things the way you'd expect. But my God, when you've done Robin Hood, film wise to death a million times, it was refreshing to see a different take on it, and it had a great cast in it as well. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that film, but still, Sheriff of Nottingham was good in it, but it's still not Alan Rickman.
Can't be Alan Rickman.
It's still not Alan Rickman. So yeah, if you haven't seen Alan Rickman in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, I highly recommend it. So anyway, what's this? Life of James. I do like the Disney version with them as animals, but I remember reading it wasn't very well liked. I also read something similar, James. It wasn't at the time, and in the years after, people didn't really value it. However, I did recently watch it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It had a slightly more adult humor to it that I may not have appreciated when I was a kid. Maybe that's why it wasn't massively popular when it came out. But that's Disney films full stop, isn't it? Full of filth that we don't recognize when we're kids. Okay, so we spoke about Robin Hood. Let's talk about Dogma next. Dogma, I think, is probably going to be one of the films on this list that the least amount of people have seen. Now, I have seen it, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember an awful lot about it. So I believe you have seen it very recently, haven't you?
I finished watching this film about 20 minutes ago, just before.
So literally both before we came onto this podcast, we were both like getting through Alan Rickman films as quickly as possible. So okay, talk to me about Dogma. Who is he? What does he do? I obviously know some of the answers to these questions, but our audience may not.
So in Dogma, Alan Rickman plays a guy called Metatron, who is the scribe of God, and he is, to put it in words that I've said before, I've watched it, I laughed at anything he did. He was so funny. And what I loved about him, he was like a comedic Snape. It was, every time he said something, you knew that it was going to be quite funny, but it was quite serious as well, but it was more on the funny side. And I don't know how many times I must have laughed throughout the film. First ever Kevin Smith film to sit and watch, and I don't know, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
I will rewatch it. I think I need to refamiliarize myself with it. But yeah, no, it's got Matt Damon in it as well. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, isn't it?
Matt Damon. It's also
quite a few famous people, isn't it? Yeah. No, I will rewatch it. But yeah, I do remember it being funny, but I don't remember much of why. But as I say, I must have seen it a good 10, maybe 15 years ago now. So. Okay, cool, wonderful. Let's move on. Let's move on to Harry Potter. Yeah. Because I think chronologically, in terms of the list that I'm working from today, chronologically, we're around the same time where the philosophers or sorcerers, to any American listeners, came out. So, Harry Potter.
Yes, Harry Potter.
Severus Snape. I mean, let's try and address this from the point of view of the films, not what happens. We'll get to the Deathly Hallows and we'll get to all of that. Apparently, J.K. Rowling when she wrote Philosopher's Stone, she wrote it with Alan Rickman in mind of the role, which I think is a compliment. I think, and I don't remember the story. I think maybe he was one of the ones that she based on a teacher. I'm sure any Harry Potter fans watching can correct me on that. But yes, I know that she definitely wrote it with him in mind. So when she told him this, he obviously accepted. Severus Snape. Talk to me about Severus Snape.
I like his character. I really do. I know we said about you're going to talk about Deathly Hallows a lot more, but what I think I love about him, he has a redemption arc, and that's what I love about him. He has a redemption arc throughout the story. You think he's one of these guys that can be quite bad, but then it's weird because
There you go. So, Ithil has just said, "Yep, Snape was based on her chemistry teacher," and you know what? That rings the bell. So I'm going to go with that. So, what's this? Danny has just added. Hi, Danny. Danny, obviously being guest from week 1, last week's episode. Welcome back. Alan Rickman was the only person to know from the beginning what was going to happen to the character. Well, I like that because that helps you play. That I imagine, from an acting point of view, that would help give if you can know your entire arc and your entire story, and to reflect what you were saying, Corey, the redemption, it would certainly help the way you played the role and how you interacted with the other characters throughout the story. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, you were saying.
No. Yeah, I just think everybody, when you watch him from Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerers, if any Americans out there watching this, you look at him, you think, oh, he's a bad guy. He's going to be one of these bad guys that you're not going to like. Yeah. But when you get to Deathly Hallows, and honestly, I think I sat and watched the end of Deathly Hallows Part 2 and worked myself back. You notice how much he cared about Harry.
Yeah, and I do have to agree. When you go back and you watch it from a different perspective, you it was kind of revealed in Philosopher's Stone when obviously we found out that he was, instead of trying to curse Harry on the broomstick in the Quidditch match, he was actually trying to save him. Like, why would he do that if he really hated him? So, it was there from day one. Hi, Megan. Love Rickman as Snape. Can't see anyone else. Absolutely agree with you there. Right. He just... Flying Fish, he played the whole hate love everything so bloody well. You can tell he cares, and exactly. You could tell he cared. He cared. I don't think he liked Harry an awful lot, but I think he cared about him because of his love for Lily. Which obviously we discovered the full story of that in Deathly Hallows, and it was sweet. And I have to say, my hat off to him. That scene where we see the flashback where he goes in and he's cradling Lily, and Harry's obviously in the crib, and it's sad, and everyone's crying in the cinema because they're like, oh my God, this is breaking my heart. Fair play to Alan Rickman. He absolutely nailed that scene. You felt so many things, so many components will make a good scene in a film. The music, the angles, the lighting, the script, whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to the actor. The actor can't pull off the scene. No matter how emotional the music is, you are not going to be invested in it. And I have to say, the way Alan Rickman pulled off that scene was phenomenal. Okay, Megan's just said Half-Blood Prince potions class. So much love for that scene. I don't remember that scene.
I can't remember it either. I haven't watched. That's the thing. I haven't watched Half-Blood Prince in ages.
I never liked that one, to be fair.
No.
I think I need to rewatch it. But yes,
I think my favourite scene is probably for him, like you said, it's the Deathly Hallows scene. That scene is fantastic. I think my favourite is actually Chamber of Secrets scene when they're doing the dueling, and he's like,
"Oh my God, against Kenneth Branagh." Yeah.
And then he says about Malfoy getting Malfoy versus Harry, and I thought that whole scene was just funny, and it was just a really cool little scene.
That's all right. Megan's just corrected. Wrong film. Philosopher's Stone class.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No. I know what you're talking about now. And yes. I love it in Goblet of Fire. Here we go. Flying Fish has just literally said what I was about to say. The Great Hall scene. Harry and Ron when he backhands around the head. It was brilliant.
If people have watched the special features of that scene, you can see after that happens, Alan Rickman and Daniel Radcliffe laughing together, and it's and same as the end of Deathly Hallows, because if you watch them, they're both hugging, and it's just
don't. I have to say, although Prisoner of Azkaban isn't one of my, isn't up there on my list of favorite Harry Potter films, I do feel like it was one of the ones where we got more out of Snape. He wasn't in it as much, I felt, but I felt like, especially towards the end when he protected them all outside the Whomping Willow, you really saw his care kick in at that point. Really, just great. He's, I think the thing is, his legacy will always be Snape.
Oh yeah,
his legacy will always be Snape. But he absolutely nailed it, and that's that. He absolutely When I was at school, there was a maths teacher at Bretton Woods, where I spent year 7 to year 11. His name was Mr. Blackman. He was a maths teacher. And for all, oh, did really?
I had him, yeah. I had him.
Oh, really? Really? Oh, right. Okay. And he was our Snape. He was like, he spoke a bit like him. He had that kind of voice where he kind of speaks like this, and he had jet black hair.
Yeah.
And I'm you know what, I saw him as a bit of the Death Eater, to be honest. So yeah, I think every school has their Snape, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the Snape you see as Alan Rickman, you know.
Yeah.
So okay. I have no doubt we'll be back on Harry Potter at some point in this podcast. But for now, let's move on to Sweeney Todd.
I'm out of this one.
Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen it. I think it's because it's more of the horror kind of. I know it's a musical, but I'm not a massive like that kind of thing.
No, that's fair. It's not your cup of tea. That's fair. Okay, so Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say about it. Sweeney Todd's great, but do you know what? I'll be honest. It's not a film that I immediately think of for having Alan Rickman in it. In fact, I kind of forget he's in it. Not because he's not good in it. He's fantastic in it. But it's just because there's so much else going on in the film, like Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, Sacha Baron Cohen, for me, is one of the highlights of the film. Alan Rickman is fantastic in it. The songs are very catchy. But yeah, I'm looking at the comments here. You know, Meeple Bops didn't know he was in it. It's one of those films where he is great in it, but unfortunately, in Alan Rickman verse, overshadowed by many other actors, many of which are from Harry Potter. So we've obviously got Timothy Spall in it. He plays, funnily enough, his like assistant sidekick, and Helena Bonham Carter. So a lot of the Death Eaters from the Harry Potter verse are in Sweeney Todd. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. But yes, I think it's a good film, but it's definitely, you know. He also was again, as if Phil has just said, he was a major creep with the girl who lived in the house. Yes, he was. He played a role that you didn't want to like. You know, like he plays villains like Hans Gruber and Sheriff of Nottingham and Snape, even, where you kind of go, they're clearly the bad guy, but ultimately we love that kind of bad guy. He wasn't that kind of bad guy in Sweeney Todd. He was a creepy bad guy, but he does sing in it, which was fun. You know, he does sing. He sings the song "Pretty Woman," as Andrew has just said, between himself and Johnny Depp. And as Danny said, he was great in Sweeney Todd, but he is overshadowed. So, good film. He was good in it, but it was definitely more of a supporting role. Okay. Now, here's a film that I think is massively underrated. Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
Galaxy Quest. What a film.
What a film.
You know, ultimately, I don't know much about the trivia for this film. One thing I know is that Alan Rickman absolutely loved this role, and he was actually one of his character. I can't remember his character's name in it, but his character, obviously, for those that haven't seen Galaxy Quest, it's ultimately about a cast of a sci-fi Star Trek-ish kind of TV show, and they're attending Comic-Cons in the later part of their career, and Alan Rickman's the one that hated it the most, but yet he's always wearing the bloody makeup and alien headgear. And apparently it was Alan Rickman's idea to continue doing that because he felt like, you know, it did the character some form of justice. Already we're getting great reactions to Galaxy Quest. Ithil, it's on my list to watch. Yes, definitely need to watch it. Meeple Bops, it's so bloody good. It's just fun, and it's got a really great cast in it as well. Obviously Sigourney Weaver, Tim Allen. I think Sam Rockwell's in it as
Yes,
well,
it is.
and obviously various other actors. It's just a fun film, and it's become quite a cult classic as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on last week's episode of Cult Classics, but it's a damn good film, and it has picked up a following. And I actually read an article last week. You know what? I know it came up in the Cult Classics episode because straight after I saw an article where Tim Allen gave some information about a sequel, and I commented on the article saying, you know what, some films just don't need a sequel. This is one of them.
Yeah.
And ultimately, without Alan Rickman, I don't think it's the same if they wanted to go and do like another Oceans film. I mean, they've already lost 2 of the Oceans members now, Bernie Mac and Carl Rayner, and you just don't do it. Sometimes you just go, do you know what? We've had our fun. Let's leave it there. I hope they don't do a sequel because, quite frankly, I don't think I'd be awfully interested in it.
No.
But Alan Rickman, for me, was the personal highlight of that film. He definitely, as a supporting cast member, stole the show in that film. And that was great. So yeah, to quote what Meeples just said, we hit gold, now don't try again. So yeah, Galaxy Quest. If you've not seen it, watch it.
Yeah, I say watch it as well. Galaxy Quest is one of those funny sci-fi films that you don't get many these days. But when it came out in the late,
it's a rare breed, isn't it?
Yes, very rare.
I think it was 98 or 99, perhaps.
Yeah,
around there, late 90s. It's in the time when we're getting a lot of like Independence Day, and suddenly big, and Star Wars obviously came back, and suddenly sci-fi is a big thing. And it's nice to have a film where it just kind of goes, yeah, we're just going to take the mick a little bit, and you know what, that was really refreshing.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, now this is going to go down well with some people. Love Actually. Love Actually. Let's talk about Love Actually. Now, Love Actually is one of my all-time favorites. It isn't just a great Christmas film. It is great for its cast, but again, he is one of the highlights to the film for me. Not for what he does. He's a bit of a dick in it. I'm not going to lie, but he plays it so well. He plays it so well.
He does.
His story was so heartbreaking, and Emma Thompson, bless her cotton socks when she finds out what he's done, and oh, my heart breaks every time. But he plays the part so well. I keep coming back to that because there's nothing else for me to say. He is, to quote Meeple Bops here, he is the lovable cheating husband. Emma, yes. Andrew, such a dick. Yes, yay! Lots of lots of good comments coming through. The scene he does. One thing I read, interestingly, that came from Richard Curtis, who made the film. He said that Rowan Atkinson obviously only appears twice in the film, and he is ultimately the Christmas angel. And every time he appears, it's because there is a method behind his madness. Obviously, with the kid at the end at the boarding gate, he delayed it so he could sneak past him to go and see the girl. And with Alan Rickman, the reason he was taking so long to fill up the bag was to deter him from making the purchase, thus being the angel that prevented him from making a bad deed. And that has come from the director himself. So it to be some form of fact. When you watch the scene, if you hadn't already cottoned on to what was going on there, the reason Rowan Atkinson's character took so long was to try and put him off from making the purchase because he knew it wasn't cool. Yes, there we go. Yeah, really cool fact, that one. Thank you, Meeple. This brain stores some interesting facts sometimes. But yes, I mean, what a good role. And do you know what? In a weird way, he was a bit of a dick for what he did. But he's also, like, from the point of view of like his story with Laura Linney's character, the one who was trying to hook up with the other guy, Carl. He was a cool boss. He's the kind of guy in that film that I would like to have as a boss. Like if I worked, I can't remember what it was they did. I don't think they ever really made it specifically clear in the film what they wanted to do. It was like an advertising agency or something like that, I think. I don't know. It was a cool, swanky London office, the kind of place we all want to work. But he's the kind of boss that I would want. So yeah, he was a dick for what he did in his personal life, But you know, on the surface, what he does in his personal life, I don't give two shits. If he's that kind of boss to me, then we're cool, you know. So, yeah, I loved him in that. And do you know what? He is definitely, other than maybe Liam Neeson and maybe Bill Nighy, definitely the highlight of that film. I mean, Bill Nighy is fantastic in it, but yeah, Alan Rickman. And also, one of the things that I loved about it was that his chemistry with him and Emma Thompson. Him and Emma Thompson were the best of friends.
That was the first film that he actually did with her. He did Sense and Sensibility and another one with her.
He did The Winter's Guest, which he directed. That was the 97. That was his first film. So his first film that he directed was a film called The Winter's Guest, which I have overlooked. I apologize because I've not actually seen it. But he did that in 1997, and he did that with Emma Thompson, I believe. Anyway, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. Let me just check. Yep, Emma Thompson. There we go. He did a lot with. Oh no, but you're right. It was Sense and Sensibility first. That came out in '95. But they also did a thing in on the BBC in, I can't remember. Was it called that? Oh, here we are. The Song of Lunch, and it was literally this kind of monologue-esque BBC drama that just featured a reunion between, I think they were friends or a couple, going out for lunch and catching up. And it was him and Emma Thompson. And it was wonderful. It was, as someone who had watched Love Actually, I think 6-7 years before, and then to see the pair of them get back together and do something different. Oh my God, it was so good. So it's called The Song of Lunch, and it was a BBC short TV series episode thing. If you can find it, I would highly, highly recommend it. It was just lovely to watch him and Emma Thompson together again.
Well, I think if I know that a lot of people are commenting are probably going like, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, Danny's just made a great point. It works so well with their story too, as Emma Thompson had just gone through that in her own life. Yep, she had just been cheated on. I know for a fact that she confided. In fact, was it Kenneth Branagh? I think naughty. It was Kenneth Branagh. So Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson were together, and Kenneth Branagh cheated on Emma Thompson with Helena Bonham Carter. I know it's all very Harry Potter incestuous going on here.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then Emma Thompson confides in her best friend, Alan Rickman, about it. It's always a big damn Gilderoy Lockhart. What are you doing, you bastard? It must have made Harry Potter very interesting.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that's what we want to say about Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman. Is they're both in Harry Potter together, and I think that's the thing that we always.
Do they ever share a scene together?
No, I don't think they do. Which is
they may have been sat in the Great Hall together, but I don't know if they ever actually properly shared this. I don't recall them sharing a scene together.
No.
So yeah, they did the Harry Potter series together. They did that BBC drama. They did Love Actually, Sense and Sensibility, and The Winter's Guest. Plus, there's probably something else they've done. They just did everything together, and I loved that.
Yeah,
I loved that.
I know that Emma Thompson did a lot of stuff with Anthony Hopkins as well.
Ah, yes, she did.
Because they did Remains of the Day.
Yes, they did. So yeah, I mean, Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman's relationship, we couldn't do a podcast without mentioning that. So I'm glad we have gone on to that. But yeah, Love Actually. Right, next up, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You like this film, don't you?
Yes, I do. I think the thing about Hitchhikers is it's funny. Again, same with what I love about Galaxy Quest. It's one of those it's taking the Mickey sci-fi films, and it has a good cast in it. It has like Martin Freeman, Alan Rickman. It's got Stephen Fry doing a voice of a whale that I think the narrator. It's got such a huge.
The whale falling through the sky is Bill Bailey.
Is that Bill Bailey? I can't
Bill Bailey. No, because it's like I tell you now, it's one of the only things I actually ever remembered about the film. I have seen it. I've seen it a few times, but you're right. It's a bit like Galaxy Quest, but I'm sure the whale who's falling through the sky Stephen Fry is narrating, and he's talking about the whale. And as the whale's falling through the sky, it's Bill Bailey doing the voice.
Yeah.
My God, it had me in. Bill Bailey is my favorite comedian, so for me, it just had me in stitches. Funny film. But yes, Alan Rickman was the voice of Melvin. But he was only the voice, because Warwick Davis actually played the physical embodiment of Melvin, didn't he? Warwick Davis, local lad. A combination of Warwick Davis and Alan Rickman brought Melvin to life. Another Harry Potter reference. What is it about all these bloody Hogwarts teachers? Now we know what they did in their private time.
Yeah. Let me have a look quickly. Hitchhikers.
But yes, no, I enjoyed it. It was a good film. I do think I need to rewatch it though.
Sam Rockwell again.
Yes, Sam Rockwell. Yep.
Zoe Deschanel, Warwick Davis, as we said, Richard Griffiths, another Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, it was British film though, isn't it? You know, British film. You get a lot
Helen
of
Mirren, Bill Nighy.
Oh yes, of course, Bill Nighy. Yeah, Bill Nighy also in Harry Potter.
Yep.
So there we go, Hitchhikers. Okay, now let's move on. Martin Freeman, of course, Martin Freeman. Let's move on to another one. Alice in Wonderland. Now, this is one of those films where I think it's fair to say he was a bit like. It feels like every time he's in a Tim Burton film, he doesn't go in it with the intention of being the main star. Because I know he was only the voice of the caterpillar, wasn't it? Yeah. That's it. But didn't you know it was him?
Oh yeah, you did. You did.
One of those nice roles where he was used for his voice, properly used for his voice. Alice in Wonderland is definitely one of my favorite Tim Burton films, to be fair. But you meant, I believe you brought that up on the podcast last week, didn't you?
Yes.
It was it's a good film. It's a good film.
What I love about Alice in Wonderland as well is the fact is obviously they brought a lot of people in that film that you can sit there and go, you recognise the voice.
Oh my God, yeah. And I think it was one of those.
Carter. I think they brought Timothy Spall, the dog.
Christopher Lee was the dragon.
Yeah, and Hathaway as well. It was just such a good cast for such a great movie.
Also, Crispin Glover.
Yes, he was Helen Bonham Carter's right hand man. I can never Swain, something like that. I can't remember.
I don't remember. But yeah, so we've got that. What else? Our comments have gone very quiet suddenly. We've tackled Alice in Wonderland and no one's mentioned it. I'm surprised. So, oh dear, maybe we've lost our loyal followers. But yes, Alice in Wonderland, great film, but again, not a film that. Oh, they're still here. That's good. Not a film that I think Alan Rickman was necessarily directly known for, because he played a small role in it, and even then he was only the voice. So, okay, now this is the sad bit where we kind of get into the later part of Rickman's career. He obviously only did a few films post 2011, 2012. He did. I watched this last night I don't think it was the first time I've seen it. I might have seen it before, but I don't remember much about it. He did a film called The Butler with Forest Whitaker.
Yes.
And now this
very dominant film. It was one of those films that it was quite I wouldn't say it was upsetting, but then you also got that quite nice fondness of it.
Yeah, it was a lot. It follows ultimately Forest Whitaker as a butler at the White House through his career, his life and career, from being a kid working in a cotton plantation in the 1920s through to his life seeing Barack Obama get elected president, which obviously for a lad who grew up a slave, and to see a black man become the president of the United States of America, and it was a really heartwarming story. And Forest Whitaker's a fantastic actor, but through his journey through his journey in the White House, he came across many different presidents, and I think he must have served under at least 10 presidents in the end. And one of those presidents was Ronald Reagan. And it was actually Ronald Reagan who he was working with when he handed in his resignation. So, and Alan Rickman, very well, I would like to add.
Yeah.
Alan Rickman. I mean, there is a film coming out soon about Ronald Reagan, and I've forgotten his bloody name. Dennis Quaid is playing him. He looks nothing like him.
Right.
And I'm watching The Butler last night, thinking, good Lord, Alan. I actually couldn't tell to begin with it was Alan Rickman because he had his hair. He had Snape hair, but it was like Ronald Reagan's Snape hair. And it was one of the very few films with Alan Rickman where he puts on an American accent. And you don't initially think it's him. And it was really sweet because for me personally, I have to say, I loved the fact that the first president that Forrest Whitaker served under was Robin Williams, who I believe was Eisenhower.
Yes, it was.
And then the last president he served under was Ronald Reagan, played by Alan Rickman. So you start the film with Robin Williams and you end it with Alan Rickman. And it got me a little bit emotional. I'm not ashamed to admit, seeing these two incredible actors that I adore both of them in a film together. It's small roles, but they nailed the roles they had. And I really loved that. You also had James Marsden, obviously Cyclops from the X-Men films, playing JFK. You had Liev Schreiber playing Johnson, Lyndon Johnson. You had, quite a few famous actors playing small roles in it. But I have to say, Alan Rickman.
Another great cast for one of those films that you.
A big ensemble cast,
That's the thing about Butler. Not many people have heard of it. It was one of those films that was under the radar. I think
it was Oscar. Oh, this is going to sound awful. It was kind of one of those films that you could tell it was made to try and win a load of Oscars.
Yeah,
that sounds terrible because it is a really good film and I do highly recommend it. But it was what you would call Oscar bait. Yeah. It was like, let's make a film that we know is going to have a big cast with a load of actors playing small roles about something that's really emotional and really meaningful. And yes, it ticked all those boxes. But I think ultimately it was made to be shoved under the noses of the Oscar voters. But I don't know whether it did well at the Oscars or not. But ultimately, it's a very good film and I highly recommend it. So that moves us on to a film, the film that I am almost finished watching, that I was just watching before we started this podcast, called A Little Chaos, which is the second film that he directed. And it's starring him and Kate Winslet. And Stanley Tucci as well. And it was set. I couldn't tell you when it was set, but basically it was set in France, and he played the king. Alan Rickman played the king. And when I was watching it, I was kind of watching it thinking, "Where's this film going?" I kind of went in watching, kind of like thinking, ultimately, where's this going? He played Louis the 14th of France. And basically the whole film is about Louis XIV's obsession with his gardens. He loved exquisite grand gardens, and Kate Winslet is an architect of a garden, and it's the story simply of that. It's not the most enamoring film in the world, and you know what? I'm sure when Alan Rickman made it, he didn't expect it to be either. But there is a wonderful scene between him and Kate Winslet in a garden where he just needs to get away for a day. And he goes and sits in one of his gardens. Kate Winslet's currently working on it. And she walks in and she doesn't know he's the king. And he sits there and he's not got his wig on, so you can't tell, she doesn't recognize him. And she's like, oh, she mistakes him for another gardener. And she's chatting away to him like he's just Joe Blogs. And he plays along with it, and it is such a wonderful scene between him and Kate Winslet, and again, Alan Rickman isn't in the film an awful lot, but when he steals the show. And seeing him and Kate Winslet, who is one of my all-time favorite actors, working together is a real treat. So if you want to watch something a little bit more low-key and a little bit different, A Little Chaos with Alan Rickman, Kate Winslet, directed and written by Alan Rickman. Highly recommend. Very interesting. As Flying Fish has just advised, she landscapes the gardens of Versailles. So there you go. Okay. The last film that we have on the list is actually his last film, which makes me a bit sad saying actually, but it's The Eye in the Sky that he
Yes.
did with Helen Mirren in 2015. And it's again one of those low budget but very wonderful. I say wonderful. It wasn't really a wonderful film. It was very emotionally scarring film. But he works as part of the British government, British intelligence, and it's about whether they do a drone strike on a set of terrorists. And it was a low key role for him. And I don't think he knew he was unwell at this point, but it kind of feels a bit poetic that one of his last roles is quite a role where he doesn't have to do an awful lot, but he gets to display what a wonderful actor he really was. So yeah, good film. Again, a film where I feel like Helen Mirren is the highlight of the film, if I'm perfectly honest. She absolutely was fantastic in it. And don't get me wrong, Alan Rickman was as well. But yeah, it was one of those films where he had a supporting role, and I think he was quite comfortable in that supporting role. I know he came back and did the voice of the caterpillar one more time in the sequel to Alice in Wonderland.
Sequel wasn't great though.
Sequel was very, very crap, to be honest. And then obviously, unfortunately we lost him in January of 2016. So five years ago last week, which is what brought on this podcast.
Yes,
obviously when it came up in conversation last week, a few people said that we should do this. So here we are doing this. And ultimately, I think he will be an actor that will live on. Not just for Harry Potter, but for everything he's done. He's such a pleasant, and that's the best word I can think to use off the top of my head, such a pleasant actor to watch, to listen to. And I bet you any money he has inspired many people around the world, across the country, around the world, to want to be actors because of the way he does what he does. And that's really a wonderful thing about him. But yeah, he will be missed. He will be missed. I'm very sad to see that he won't be doing any more films. But that is the way it is.
In 2016, we lost quite a few people actually.
Well, him and David Bowie were 4 days apart, weren't they? So
we lost Lee in that year as well.
Was Christopher Lee 2016?
Might have been. I know what we lost someone quite.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not focus on that. But yes, to name a few things that Alan Rickman did in theatre, he did Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
He did Sherlock Holmes. He did. I'm just having a look through what else he's done. He did Hamlet. He also did. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, The Winter's Guest, he actually also did in the West End, and he directed it as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. And he was doing theatre up until 2012. My God, I would have cut off my arms to have seen him on Broadway or West End. What an experience that would have been. But yeah, crying shame. I don't believe he ever won an Oscar, did he?
No, he didn't.
No, he should have. There's quite a few roles I can think of that he should have probably at least won an Oscar for. But he did get a BAFTA. He did get a BAFTA for Robin Hood, the supporting role there. So, so that's ultimately it. That's our little tribute to the incredible, the wonderful, and the legendary Alan Rickman. So yeah, are there any films to our listeners and our watchers, live watchers, I should say, because this is the only way I'm going to get an answer? Are there any films that we've not tapped into that you wish we had? Because now is the time to mention it. If not, then I think we've had a nice little chat about him, and that's really lovely. But yes, so. The wonderful Alan Rickman, may he rest in peace. But yes, here's a question for you then, Corey. If you could have seen him do any film that you have seen, or a dream role that you would rather have seen him play instead of another actor, what would it have been?
Oh,
And to our current watchers, if you're watching this right now, if you could have seen Alan Rickman be in any film, series, individual, whatever, what would it have been? I'm curious.
honestly, for me, I wouldn't mind him seeing him as like a James Bond villain. I think
Oh, good
good James
shout.
Bond villain.
Oh, like a sinister British Bond villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. That's a really, yeah, I like that. Whilst people are having a think, Andrew has just shared a wonderful quote from him. I do take my work seriously, and the way to do that is not to take yourself too seriously. What a wonderful quote. I think a lot of people should take steed with that. So yes, do you have listeners? Do you have a film, series, franchise, a one-off film that you've watched that you think, do you know what? I would love to have seen him play that role. Megan has just said Dr. Evil would have been amazing. Dr. Evil, yes, that would have been a funny one to have seen. I agree with you there. Life with James has said maybe King Henry VIII, if he's ever been. Yes. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, I agree with you, James. Picturing him as a Tudor of some description would definitely be. He's got that period drama, historic, authentic feel about him, which obviously, as he plays Louis XIV in the film he directed. What else? Ithil says, since he did Sherlock on stage, perhaps in the films as well, I think he would have made a cracking Moriarty.
Yeah,
I'm just
he
going to
would
put that out there right now. Moriarty would have been a great character for him to play. Emma, not a film, but a series, of course. Series are equally as welcome. I think he would have been good in Game of Thrones. Yes, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure. Not sure. I think he would have made an interesting, like, Lannister type character, perhaps. I'm not sure, but yes, I would like to have seen him in something like Game of Thrones. Oh my god! I keep clicking the wrong comments. As a Bolton, yes, a Bolton could, or a Lannister. Yes, I agree. Yes, Meeple Bops, you took the words out of my mouth. Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I could see him as a Cardinal Richelieu. Manipulating the king, trying to get his own way. He would have, but equally would have liked to have seen him as one of the Three Musketeers as well.
Yeah.
I think Alan Rickman could have played anybody in the Musketeers story. Andrew says, Merlin, even though it's another wizard, I think his dry humor would have worked. That's Merlin, the BBC TV series. I have not seen it, but Corey, I believe you have.
Yes, I have seen it. I do love it.
Yeah, do you think Alan Rickman could have fit in nicely in that?
I think if John Hurt didn't do the dragon, I think he could have done the voice of the dragon quite well.
Interesting. I didn't know John Hurt was in it.
Yes, John Hurt does the dragon.
Nice. Nice.
I wouldn't put him. I'd put because he has that kind of voice again with a voiceover. I think he'll be quite very good for that. Trying to think of something else.
I think I would like to have seen him work with, like, a director a bit more like someone like Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. Really push him to his limits, put him in a role where he probably would have been a fish out of water. But I think he would have nailed it no matter what. Martin says, imagine if he was in a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Now, funnily enough, because Jeremy Irons was in the Dungeons and Dragons film in 1998, and Jeremy Irons is, again, one of my favorite actors. But obviously, Jeremy Irons and Alan Rickman played brothers in the Die Hard series. So you obviously had Hans Gruber's brother in Die Hard with a Vengeance was played by Jeremy Irons, and because they've both got not necessarily similar but iconic voices, and that ties into what Flying Fish has just said. Oh my God, Alan Rickman as Scar. I mean, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure. I'm
not sure.
I would like to have seen that as an option. option, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. But yes, Alan Rickman as Scar. Alan Rickman really just doing the voice in any Disney film.
Yeah,
Quite, other than obviously Alice in Wonderland,
yeah,
but in like a proper Disney film, that would have been cool. But yes, okay. Life with James says, I mean, not that Jeremy Irons isn't the Scar. I agree. And with all the greatest of respect to Chiwetel Ejiofor, he did not do the role justice in the remake. Flying Fish, Jafar, Alan Rickman as Jafar. Oh, I think she's hit a good point there.
Yeah,
Alan Rickman playing Jafar. I like that. That's definitely a role I could have seen him do. I mean, I'm looking at my film collection right now, and I can see him doing so many films. You know, like I think it's fair to say he was very selective with his roles. He didn't go into a role without knowing that he can have fun with it, and I admire that about him. Like, as to quote the quote that he said that Andrew shared a few minutes ago. Don't take yourself too seriously, because I guess the point of that is you won't have fun otherwise.
No, I would like to. I know this is again saying about comfort zone. Him in like a disaster movie would have been quite an interesting one.
Yeah. Disaster films are always good. He would have been good in one of them.
Like Armageddon or something very similar to that kind of.
Here's a question: do you think had he still been with us today, he would have joined a Marvel film by now?
Yes, I think he would have, if he was still here today, he would have played a very good Doctor Doom because of his voice.
Ah, that's a good shout, Doctor Doom.
Or Galactus, because he is huge, and hearing that voice with Galactus, that'll just give me shivers down back straight away.
Yeah. Andrew, 2020, the movie. Yes, well, if only.
Well, 2020, the movie, that's Death to 2020 on Netflix.
Yeah. I would have liked him in potentially Solo. His humor. Star Wars. Yeah, that's good. I agree with you there. Emma. I would have liked to have seen him in another rom-com just because of how charming, lovable. I agree with you there, Emma. Grace. Hi, Grace. Him as Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Obviously, Colin Firth made that role very, very famous. But do you know what? I think Alan Rickman had the charm to pull that role off very well. And obviously, you know, with him doing things like Sense and Sensibility and bits like that, you know, I agree. That's a good shout there. I think he was one of those actors that was so versatile. He could have popped up in anything.
Yeah.
Definitely got a period feel to him. You know, things like Pride and Prejudice, Three Musketeers.
I would have liked to see is him in a western.
I agree. He would have. Do you know what? I see him as like the local sheriff who keeps law and order in a calm and collected manner. But ultimately, if you mess with him, he won't hesitate in shooting the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Like that. Oh, that is Alan Rickman all over. It really is. Well, interestingly, there is a book coming out in 2022 for those of you that may be interested, and it is the diaries of Alan Rickman. He kept diaries from his early days in acting, when he first started acting, and just before. He kept very intense diaries right up until his last moments, and these are being published as a book in 2022. So perhaps if this podcast is still going in 2022, we'll do a follow-up to the Alan Rickman podcast based on with his contributions to his roles, based on his diaries. That'll be really interesting, I think, to see. So there we go. Right, let's wrap today's podcast up there. So Corey, thank you for joining me. I appreciate that. It's been wonderful talking to you. Next week, I will be back at 7:00 with my special guest, Emilia, and we will be discussing comedies from all different types of parts of the world. British comedies, American comedies, all sorts of comedies. It's a genre that I have never really tackled much before from a podcast point of view, and now we will be. So yes, comedies next Friday, 7:00. And of course, a wonderful new guest. If you haven't already, please follow Nobody Puts Podcast in a Corner on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and so on. It's exhausting, I know, but I'm trying to build an empire here. So yes, we'll be back. And of course, if you have been watching and you want to be on this season of Nobody Pots Podcast in a Corner, all you need to do is drop me a message with a particular idea of a theme, of a subject, of a topic that you wish to discuss, and we will discuss it. You are always welcome. Meeple Bops. Okay, Palpatine, calm down. How about you calm down, Meeple Bops? I will say whatever Empire-esque quotes I want. Thank you. Blah 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 blah. Thank you, Corey, for joining. Thank you all for watching and listening and commenting and questioning and goodness knows what else. And we will be back 7 o'clock next Friday for our comedies podcast. Until then, stay safe. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and see you all very soon. Bye-bye.
See you later.